All right, being 7 o'clock, I call the Lisle Library District Special Board Meeting to order for September 26, 2019. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Thomas Duffy.
Here.
Thomas Lisle.
Here.
Karen Larson.
Here.
Jenny Norton.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
And Liz Swistek.
Here.
All right. Next item on the agenda is opportunity for visitors to speak. Would anybody like to speak?
Hi, Chris. No, I'm good. Many people have been raving about how incredible the new grade school is. They're drowning out the few who didn't want to build in the first place. There is no doubt that our children will benefit from this new school, along with the benefits to homeowners in the form of increased property values. Our children will now be better prepared for the future. Just give a thought to how the library could work with our schools to provide even more opportunities for learning. Not only for children, but also for our adult patrons. It is rare nowadays to stay in a job more than a few years, so adults need also to prepare for life changes, not only in the job market, but in the changing technologies that affect their everyday life. You could say that you can just take a college course, but many of our patrons can't afford that. Also, college courses are rising, the costs. In the time of paycheck to paycheck living, it is easy to lose everything, to fall through the cracks. Not too long ago, someone in our community did. They were a professional person who had fallen through the cracks. The library could help provide the tools that they need to keep them from falling in the first place. Thank you.
Anybody else? All righty. Next item on the agenda is a housekeeping item for the last week's board meeting. It's a consent agenda item action. Can I get a motion to acknowledge the revenue and expense reports for August 31st of 2019?
So moved.
We have a motion, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Chris, you want to take a roll call?
Sure. Thomas Duffy.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Jenny Norton.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
And Liz Swistek.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the project definition and options for the Lisle Library District facility. This is the CCS presentation and discussion. We have Graham Harwood, Project Director, and Mark Rogers, Project Manager from CCS, to help the board define and weigh options for facility improvements, cost estimating, funding, and location options. This meeting is the board's first step in making larger capital project decisions going forward. I look forward to hearing everyone participate and express their ideas. So I will turn it over to Graham and Mark.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for having us here. We'll kind of introduce ourselves here, but hopefully everyone has at least a brief agenda page. It's one page there. We're just going to cover a couple topics. I think you all have that, who we are. And then maybe what we're trying to do this discussion is some feedback on the scope that we're going to be talking about and some feedback on where we're going to take the funding discussions. That's really what we're here to do. Introduce myself, I'm Mark Rogers. I'm a licensed architect. I joined CCS 5 years ago now. After practicing architecture for a number of years, I work on the owner's representative side and basically act as a liaison between the cost management side and the owner's rep side for all of our clients. I don't know if I've ran the first couple pages there, but I'm also a local Lisle resident, and so I've been here for about the same time, around 5 years. So I use the library and well familiar with the area too. But let Graham take the first couple pages there.
Okay, thank you, Mark. My name is Graham Harwood. I'm a principal with CCS. I've been with CCS for over 20 years now, and I was originally educated in England and qualified as a quantity surveyor. I've got 13 letters behind my name, but doesn't mean anything over here, so we just call it alphabeti spaghetti, and there we go. But CCS International was founded in 1979. We're in Oak Grove Terrace, and we've been specialising in owners representation and cost management. And we've done, as you can see, what you see all the red dots on there, represents approximately about 55 libraries that we're doing in the area, some of which you might know, Fountaindale, DeKalb recently, and a whole load of others, Oak Park, etc., etc. All of those, I can say without exception, will be completed under budget. Oak Park, for example, we saved $3 million there, and we used that to update the branch, the Maze branch. Fountaindale, we completed that, and we were approximately $2 million under budget, so we used that to do a studio in the basement. So we've got a pretty good track record. We've got very, very good references in the library market, so people know us. And we do know what it costs to build a library and what components are needed to do a library. At the end of the day, the project is yours. And we never forget that. We're not a builder, we're not an architect, we have no other interest except yours. And that's what we look to do. And deliver the project, get it under budget, and get it on time. So what we're looking at is preparing an order of magnitude, 2 library projects, options that we're looking at. First one would be renovation, addition to the existing library. We've recently done one of those at Villa Park. It's approximately 10 million in size. I know it'll work. So we're just completing that. 30,000 square feet with an addition of 10,000 square feet. So we've got up-to-date costs, and we do know what it takes. The other option would be to look at a library downtown, to put together some order of magnitude for that, reflecting the same sort of space that we have for this one. And it's a balancing act, but now is the right time, because I've had projects before, sorry, that's this paper, where a library's gone and taken on board an architect, and they've done 200 drawings or more. They've got exactly what the board wanted, exactly what everybody wanted. The only problem was they could not afford it. So all those 200 drawings had to be redone, and that's not the position we want to be in. So we look at it from a very fiscal perspective. We try and get the scope of what you're looking for, finding out the size of what you're looking for, finding out whether you're renovating, whether you want a renovation, whether you want an addition, and how it comes together, give you some idea as to what that would cost. Then we look at your funding options, and we'll go through that later. But it's a balancing act between what you want, prioritizing what's there compared to where you are with what you can afford. And we'll go through the funding options later. But what we want to do today, it's not about designing a library today. That's not the goal. This is a very, very high level perspective on what we're looking at. So you're going to bear that in mind. But what we do want to know is what you guys want. You're the people that will be here with the library at the end of the day. It's your money, and we've got to hear what you want, and then we'll put together the scope and the funding to give you an idea of what we're looking at, and then it'll be reviewed by you so that you can understand where you are and what you can afford. We've seen libraries before that have a champagne taste of a beer budget. It's not a good mix. So we're balancing all the time, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've been so successful. We've managed to obtain that balance in the beginning, and then keep coordinating, keep communicating, and keep the project on track with what you can afford and what you want. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Mark.
So really the gist of what we're talking today is really looking at the scope, and what we do originally is come in and take a look at your documents, what you've put out there in the public, that hey, this is what we're looking at, this is what we value, these are our priorities. So when we're looking at that right now, we do know that you have the 2019 to 2022 strategic plan. I've identified numerous different pieces and parts, and what we're going to go through here is some of the questions that we have for you to make sure that when we do price out some options, we're pricing out what you really are meaning in that document. We're also looking at things like the Frederick Quinn 10-year maintenance outlook. We want to make sure that what we're putting in is not only going to capture what you want, but also what you need. Now that plan identified numerous things. I think it was about $2 million worth of work. Besides the critical work, I think it was about $500,000 critical things that we are tackling right now, and we see it outside today. But you know, things such as a new roof, something down the line that's going to be over $500,000 is what they're projecting in today's dollars. Not to mention what it might be 5 years from now. You're looking at doing repaving and replacing sidewalk more than what you're doing today, and that was going to be somewhere in the range, at least in Frederick Quinn's terms, about $350K when you add those together. You have some big ticket items in there. You have ceiling tile replacement, you have restrooms, you have carpet, that all adds up to a lot of dollars. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing here incorporates that, so that we're tackling those as part of a larger building project, and you're not just putting Band-Aids on these pieces. So with that being said, we have that captured, we have what's in there. What we want to do to talk today about is the pain points. And I think a lot of those pain points are tied up in the strategic plan. So what we've gone and done is try to categorize all different parts and pieces. One of the first things we want to look at is what new spaces are in that strategic plan that you don't have today when you're planning. One of the big highlights in there that could be a dollar amount is restrooms on all floors. One of the main notes. You don't have the restrooms up beneath the floor right now. You have one that's up there for the staff, and that's it. I know you did a little bit of work here, I think, on this level, the rooms here, and you have the restrooms down below level. So right off the bat, just want to make sure that we're understanding correctly. You're looking to add square footage up on the second floor. It wouldn't be, or are you looking at displacing some of the department if you're leaving the equipment up there? To add bathrooms, you need a significant amount of square footage, not only for the spaces, because you have to have accessibility for handicap. You have to have universal design standards met. And this is the first time for chime up and cut me off when you want.
Well, in my opinion, because I think it's pretty hard or cost prohibitive to expand upstairs. Because I don't know, I mean, that would probably be a major project, then throw in the bathroom. So in my opinion, I think we should try to find a way to maybe move the youth services downstairs.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I don't know whether everybody else is on that. So it's a first question.
Well, are we going to, is this the kind of discussion we're going to have
Absolutely.
as we
Yes,
go?
yes.
Or do you want us to wait?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
And we're looking for that type of input, a little discussion here, and then so everyone knows where we're going to take this. Is we're going to go back to our offices. We're going to start looking at, okay, what you told us.
Sure.
Start putting this together, some, I'll call it a la carte pricing. So we come back to you later, and we try to balance out what the funds, is what the other steps of funds,
Yeah.
what the a la carte pricing is, and make sure the mix of what you want our report to be,
Yeah.
not your project, but what our report to be, is in line.
So, I mean, probably, I mean, like I said, try to move youth services downstairs, probably, again, not that I'm a building designer, but I would think maybe in the back, probably would make sense, as that there are a couple of bathrooms back there already. Obviously, they would have to be completely renovated, remodeled, expanded, et cetera, but, I mean, at least that gives you
When you
some
look
point.
at that, I think that's in the staff area, where you have the diagonal wall, basically, kind of bisects the staff.
That's,
to the public.
would that be, you're probably talking about technical services,
That's where the
Yeah,
plumbing is and the
yeah,
public.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
So in your mind, and collectively,
Yeah.
would you be taking out the admin diagonal wall in some of those
Or the
spaces,
tech-
using some of the services that are there?
correct, so I would think, my opinion would be youth services downstairs, so tech services would definitely have to be relocated. And then obviously upstairs then becomes vacated. I don't know, maybe that would be for admin and tech services. I know there's some concern because obviously they deal with a lot of the deliveries of books and materials, so getting those materials upstairs. I mean, we do have an elevator, but, you know, that's probably starting to get a little bit too in the Muncha Leagues? I don't know.
Let me ask this question. This floor, so, and I'm going to kind of bounce around
Sure.
a little bit here, but the next day kind of lends itself to suitable group and study spaces. Well, group spaces can be very large spaces, something like this, where it's a bisected room, we small spaces. So when we look at that, if you're moving youth, and the other part of it was, and we'll get to it in a second, you wanted to create an accessible entrance and really kind of bring a new environment to the entrance. Would you potentially reduce into this area with maybe more staff and that becomes meeting room, or no, your books and everything else are here, they're split between the two? And
Well, go ahead.
Well, I have a question as far as new spaces. Are we talking about new spaces, as in additions, or new spaces within our current footprint? Are we going to utilize the current footprint?
So that's,
Or are we
that's the
going to
question.
expand?
So that gets at the root of the question of, you can add, when I say new spaces up here, those are just spaces you don't currently have. in the
Exactly,
building.
okay.
So they can be inserted into the existing footprint, which means you're deducting something that's here,
Yes.
and taking away from square footage. Or you can add on. And there is the potential to add on by maybe extending your second floor out a little bit towards the west. Your floor plates can be, you can do things to do that. It does become a more significant project, but
Yeah.
once you start looking at, okay, we're going to take out the staff side, protect services where it is, you're starting to get into some significant work anyways. So maybe you can look at that option. We can press out some
Sure.
of the differences there, at least to show you,
Sure.
okay, if you're adding, let's say, 5,000 square feet to maybe accommodate a little bit, but not much, what does that cost compared to just trying to utilize this floor plate and fit all of these new spaces into the existing floor plate?
And we know from the space study that we did, that I think in that document talks about, I think we're at 32,000 square feet, and the document says, well, you probably need 53 if you want to do it. And I don't know, that's not what I'm advocating for 53 just yet. But I think you're to the effect of this problem, in my mind, there is probably some need to, some expansion if you're in this current footprint. Exactly what that is probably is driven by all the new spaces that we require. And I do agree with President Hummel of consolidating the staff administrative area, probably both from just a workflow as well, and having them in a larger updated space, but also incorporates all the new flexible use that would probably allow them to have. They actually may have less space, but have more in many aspects, which would be beneficial to them. But yeah, I think there would have to be some expansion west, or whatever, what.
Can you do it on could you do it on the north side, like where the windows are, like expand out? I mean,
And
if you
keep it on
could,
the
like,
first floor,
about how
yeah.
many, yeah,
We can look at that.
like doing the second and then expanding the first, out, making it more uniform, maybe have the entrance there? I don't know.
That's a good point.
Because I would also think that youth services, I don't know if everyone's aware kids can be loud. So if we were to have them, all the patrons on one floor, there will have to be some type of potential sound barriers to allow for
Yeah,
non-children. So that would be something where if you were to probably
Or like
expand
adult
that.
services downstairs and youth services upstairs?
Something, I think just a mind of, if you had it all on one floor, what I've seen in other libraries, right, like you
Mixed.
go there, maybe they have like a wall or something where now all the noise is kept in there.
Right, so it's segregated, like you said.
Yeah.
You walk left, it goes into the youth through, like down the road, and then there's one floor that you kind of walk through a wall to get into there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the issues we have too is that we only have the one entrance right now. They used to have, the one downstairs where now the atrium kind of area, but, there needs to be more than one entrance, in my mind. And especially if that was a consideration, was moving youth services downstairs, I think there needs to be an entrance by that, because, especially in parking, because if people are coming and they've got their kids and they've got strollers and they've got all that stuff, if they don't have something that's convenient for them to park and get in easily, they're not gonna wanna come. Like, I wouldn't wanna schlep my kids super far to get in, so.
I think that might be one of the challenges with,
With our footprint?
well, the footprint, but if you're, there are challenges, though. There's things you can do. If you go west with your existing second floor and go further west and don't really change too much of the outline of the building, you might not have to do too much with parking. And the one thing that we'll factor in when we start these prices, if we bring out the, what is called a new entrance, or wherever it might be, add on to the north on the first floor, you're displacing parking. And the question would be, do you need to replace that displaced parking somewhere else on
Especially if it's
property?
handicap.
Especially
Yeah.
handicap or
We have
things
two
like that.
lots.
And we have the two properties,
Yeah.
the property there and the property there,
East
so.
and south.
Yep,
Yeah,
so you can
so
potentially.
you can
maybe-
expand your parking.
Yep, so I think maybe one of the options is that if we were to put in a new square footage, whatever it might be, whatever, would it be appropriate that if whatever parking count we're displacing, we have to account for parking somewhere else? So it's basically one-to-one, you don't lose parking spaces
Right.
essentially. Okay.
When you say more than one entrance, are you thinking for the public or one entrance for the public and one entrance for the staff?
I'm thinking more than one entrance for the public.
Public.
Because right now, staff has another entrance that they can get in downstairs, but there's just the one for the public. And I feel like most of the libraries that I visited in the area have at least two entrances for public.
Downers has two, Woodridge has two.
Woodridge has two, the Naperville ones.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about most of those, and we'll just point out operational concerns, is that when you come into two entrances, they both typically need to be staffed. And I think Downers is one where they have a staff in the center.
In the center.
Where you come in entrance, both
Right,
entrances.
go down,
funnel
Yep.
go
to the
down,
point.
yeah.
Yep,
So maybe that's something that we can look at,
Yeah,
okay,
if you could funnel it. that'd be
funnel it
best.
somewhere.
Yes.
The bisecting
Yeah.
part that you need to between other parts. We maybe build in some wall allowances to soundproof and everything else.
No, would is there a way to expand upstairs on the second floor?
With looking at the details we have, yes, you're not going to load your existing wall. Now, this is, I'm still trying to keep up
Yeah,
the
sure,
30,000 square
sure.
foot and not design it.
Yeah.
But there are ways to do it. You might be throwing some structure down through, it might be some more operational impacts on you when you're doing that work. But there are ways to go out towards the west.
Because I know parking lots could get pretty expensive.
Yes.
So in comparison to that, how, if you expanded on the second floor, is it comparable or is it more expensive? Or
I think we'd look at that,
Yeah.
and maybe provide that as an option, you know, to say, okay,
Yeah.
if we're looking at adding a new structure, it's gonna be X amount of dollars per square foot, and if we add X amount of dollars, or X amount of square feet on the first floor, we're doing more parking.
Yeah.
How does that work? So we can kind of provide that as a follow-up, I think. that's
Okay,
good.
yeah, so maybe
Something for you to-
a second floor option.
As we talk, is parking a restriction here? Do you need more parking?
We don't need any more parking, in
Okay.
my opinion. no.
Okay.
I think
did-
sometimes we do, when we have large events, it's definitely challenging to find
Right.
places to park.
Okay, but it's not a critical, like, the number one priority?
No, I would say, if anything, it's not convenient, because I mean, if you have to park
Yeah.
far down, then you gotta walk. Everybody
where
wants
the
to park,
entrance is.
yeah, everybody wants to park by the front of the door.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, only so many people get that,
Yeah.
but that's, yeah.
But we're not here, every day like staff is. I don't know if staff could speak to that, the parking lot situation, just because we're not here day in, day out as the board, so.
I wanted to leave this for the board.
I know, but-
I think we're okay with the number of parking, but when we have large events, when we use the parking lot, I'll put it that way, when we do summer read, and we have to block off part of the parking lot, because we don't have an outdoor area to do outdoor events, that's a crunch. Outside of that, on a day-to-day basis, we're pretty good. What do we have, 130 parking spots?
Yes, 128 or something, counting all the handicap spaces too.
Okay. Thank you.
Going back to the entrance though, and I think there's two ways I look at it, is you have multiple entrances because you can't accommodate basically all the patrons. Or you have one entrance that is more inviting and accommodating to all patrons. So I know, for example, I think in Wheaton, their downtown one, you walk right in through one,
Yeah.
any type, you could be any patron, you get it. And I think that independent of the number of entrances, I would also, this is not a want, a need, but I think our entrance leaves a little room for improvement on first blush and kind of how when someone comes. And aesthetics, right? Like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel like what a library should as coming. I think that would be something to keep in mind just throughout as we're looking at it.
Yeah, part of it,
We're not designing today. But
Yeah.
we're trying to get some ideas so that we can give you some options as to order of magnitude and where we are. But it's good to get your feeling as to whether it might be better on the second floor, or does it need to be on the lower floor in a different location. Just get some ideas, what you're feeling. So,
I'm gonna tie it back now to the restrooms again, and just because, we kind of got the attention, but part of that.
That sounds funny.
Is the, do you need a family restroom? And I think you stressed universal design and everything else, and if you're doing two entrances, do you need that family restroom in front of both entrances? Or one entrance, maybe predominantly the youth department side, or how would you look at that?
I would say by the youth
By the youth.
services.
One,
Yeah.
okay. Because really, part of what we're going to do here is we look at room counts and square footages, and so knowing whether it's one restroom or two restrooms is going to impact how we look at that, what we're able to provide for you.
different rooms have different costs.
Oh, sure.
And
But I think it
that's
depends
kind
on,
of-
I think it depends on where it is though,
Yeah.
located, because if youth services were to be downstairs by an entrance, I think you would need more than one bathroom there then.
Okay, yep.
But if it remains upstairs and then it's, it goes out into where the current parking lot is, then I think one might be okay because you still have the ones right here that aren't too far away.
Sure.
It depends. Lots,
There's lots
I mean,
of
really,
options, yeah.
really.
These ideas we won't get through those, so that's good.
And I struggle with the one family restroom. The only reason because since we don't have one right now, patrons that would want one leave. So we don't know exactly how many we would probably need because they're leaving the premises because they don't have access to one currently. And families, young kids are a core patron base of the library. So I struggle if one is sufficient, but I also understand, I think we all agree we want one. I think that is too, I don't know the extra costs are attached, but two kind of feels like, if you have a family of, we have readings for like 2-year-olds and 1.5-year-olds, it's, having one, when you have 20 or 30 kids there may not be sufficient.
And I think, when we look at a family restroom, if they're right next to each other, back to back, that might be a little different story than if they were on 2 different floors. That's going to have a different cost impact. So knowing that, we can maybe say, there's 1 or 2, but it's X amount of square feet, and it kind of moves, once you get into design, you can define whether that needs to be 1 or 2. But maybe it's just one location has the opportunity for 1 or 2 of those spaces. Is that appropriate, you think?
I think it's appropriate. I don't know if everyone else
I think
agrees.
it's appropriate also.
I just wanted, I know I said I was going to do this before, but I just wanted to say one more thing, that family bathroom near the children's area makes a lot of sense, but I also want to make the point that a family bathroom is also for wheelchair accessibility and for adults too. So just reminder in terms of universal design concepts to think about that when you think about the layout and where these rooms go, because it allows for maneuverability within the bathroom.
What do other libraries have in terms of like family bathrooms? Do they have 1? Do they have 2? What are you kind of seeing?
Well,
Typically, I've seen 2.
2?
One on each floor.
1 on each floor?
Yeah, that's what Villa Park's got, that's what Fountaindale's got, that's what DeKalb's got. And the reason is that the children departments are in different areas, and the playrooms are in different locations, and if a child's going in one area and they're desperate to go, it could be anywhere in the library.
especially in
Right.
situations where children's are up on the 2nd floor, they have to come in from the 1st floor, and they have to go, as soon as they step in front of the building and into the building. That's on the 1st floor.
I stress that we're not making any solid, definite
Right,
decisions
right, right.
today, and we can look at it and come back with an option. And it may be that when you look at the funding and where you are and what you want to spend, and that's a key part, that the square footage you're looking at, you've got a priority list, and maybe 2 bathrooms are number 1 priority, maybe they're number 50 priority, but you fit it in and we can play with it. This is not, hey, are we going to have 1 or 2? It's, hey, we've got 1, we'd like 2, and then we'll play with it and see where we go.
So I think that covers restrooms.
2 meetings in a row. I'm gonna get a weird reputation at this board level now.
Group and study spaces, so as you see in the bottom right here, it's kind of a typical layout for some of the collaboration rooms we're seeing in different spaces now. Right now you have 2 main study spaces. You have this room here, which is accepted. Do you have enough meeting rooms and study spaces, or do you need more?
I think that was on the community survey. I think that, if I recall, wasn't that the community said they needed more space, study space?
Study space.
Yeah.
That we do.
Okay. So,
And we've actually been in your space, looking around there, in the last week or whatever else, we noticed, one of your spaces, they're actually both were being utilized, but one space, and they're big, right down on the level, one person was in there. And so if you wanted to go in there as someone else, you kind of felt awkward taking invading that space. Maybe it's not, and this is an opportunity where maybe you don't have to extend floor plate, it's just fit in by maybe reconfiguring those.
yeah, if there's sure, if there's a way to reconfigure, and again, to tie back to the one idea I was thinking about with youth services going downstairs, like admin going upstairs, is I've always thought, where the admin offices are currently, like with the director and the assistant director sits, and when you got IT, like the current director's office could be quickly converted or easily converted into it's pretty much, that could just become a study room with doing minimal work almost. And then the assistant director's office and another, where the finance person sits, those could be like small individual ones. And then where the rest of the staff sits out there, put up a wall or like with windows or what have you, and make that a study space too. I mean, again, I'm probably designing a little bit too much, but.
No, we need opinions, we need to use
Yeah,
it.
what we're here for is you don't want to necessarily just whack everything out and start from a clean slate, which you want to try to reuse some of what you have with it to get best value.
Preferably.
We have, once you get in design, you have to take into consideration different electrical requirements or egress requirements, accessibility requirements, those things. But I think that the point that Lisle noted is we want to try to maintain or make use of the value we already have.
Correct.
So study rooms, small study rooms, medium study rooms, large study rooms. There's 3 different sizes there, and I don't know what your thoughts are. Do you want a combination, or do you just want small ones, or any thoughts on?
I know staff, but I'll kind of ask staff, like, what do you see? What do you think?
The smaller group where there's seating for 2 to 4, I think is,
The need?
there's a need for that. There's also a need for, even just for 2 or an individual to have some quiet time. And obviously we have need for rooms like this, for meetings like this, so.
Yeah, I think the large rooms having that flexibility is key, so they can go really large to medium. But yeah, when I come here, if I have to do like a call for work, there's nowhere to do it if the 2 meeting rooms are taken. So having those individual smaller spaces that are enclosed, it would be nice.
Yeah. Typically, we've seen that one of the big things in a lot of the libraries now is that people want study rooms. They want that private space. And it's not the big ones that they really go to. It's the smaller ones where one with just a table in the middle. But it depends on the community.
And like Trustee Duffy just mentioned, I know you mentioned when you guys were talking prior to the meeting, I think one of the things I think we like, and even when I saw at the new school in Lisle, is flexibility.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of one thing I think we were looking at, if we could get flexibility
So
for space up, like
Yeah.
maybe like Trustee Duffy was alluding, if there's some way you could have like a medium one.
small.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how
No,
everybody else feels.
I agree completely. I mean, in every corporate environment I've been in, and even schools, you have large room that can be partitioned off,
Yeah.
and so that it's dynamic enough so that you can reconfigure it to the needs of the time and space.
Flexibility is the key. I mean, we talked earlier about, a boardroom is no longer sacrosanct. Public can come in and use that for meetings, and it's a good space for the public to come in and have a meeting as well as a large conference room. So it's that flexibility, I think, that's...
My current employer just put in a few like telephone booth-sized little individual spaces that would accomplish that conference call need back there.
Buying as furniture pieces.
Right, and we have small huddle rooms, so that, people, if they're having a short meeting or whatever, it could be up to 4 people, it could be 6. I mean, they're not tremendously big,
You don't take a ton of space.
Yeah.
You build some of it just for So there's that, and so basically what I'm hearing there is we don't really need to add square footage for those, we can just kind of reconfigure and flexibility to adapt for here. For more new spaces, the next one was media maker and STEAM activity spaces. Wanted to see is that one room in your mind that can kind of accomplish all the different pieces, or what type of media, or multiple rooms?
If I could just, before we go, just to ask though, I know we're focusing on the current building, is some of this going to be adaptable, or is that like, we're going to have that conversation later on?
So, Graham alluded to it, what we're going to do is we're going to come up with this kind of space, and basically a space allocation for all the different types of spaces for the existing building. We're going to take that and say, okay, you know what, we're not going to take that same space allocation, we're going to make it into a new building, which means you have to have new floors, new walls, new windows, all of that. So we're going to use the same back and forth.
Gotcha.
So you'll have to do this exercise once from there.
Okay, gotcha. All right, okay, I just wanted to double check, okay.
Yep.
So for the media maker space, I know we're definitely interested in that. Again, it comes probably down to the flexibility, because I know there's, where you can start small, but, so I would, since it's something fairly new for us, I would, in my opinion, I would like to start out a little bit smaller, but with flexibility, obviously. And if the usage goes up or it's there, obviously it's something we can expand. Because I know in Downers Grove, they have, I guess, a media lab. And
Something new, actually, too.
is it too?
Different from a STEAM space.
Okay,
You'll have
yeah,
to
yeah, I
say-
know, I'm just
Yep.
just focused on the media lab. I think doesn't Downers Grove have one though, too? I thought they did, maybe not. Well, I know like one of the rooms they have that is in this, it seems like what I've seen the handful of times I've been there and kind of talking to people, it's the usage sometimes is, yeah, so that's why I'd rather kind of start a little bit smaller and then if it's successful to expand. But again, the flexibility, so I mean, if it's like, if it takes up some space, but you could also move it out and utilize that space for something else. So I think when we talked in the strategic plan meetings, when we were talking about this line item, I think flexibility was key. I think we mentioned a lot, so.
Okay.
For maker.
For makers, in that case, that's a maker space, yes.
Because really, you have the media, and that's what we wanted to clarify, that, so we knew what you were kind of inferring there.
Yeah.
The media, we look at that and say, okay, what type of media you're looking at? Are you looking at, just digital, and you want someone to be able to come in there and mix music on a computer that's designed for that? Or is it someone can make music, you have a little sound room and then come and mix it? Or is it something that you want someone to be able to access local history, whatever old files they might have to have in the archives and pull them out and look at that type of media? So what do we?
I would probably say the latter. I don't think maybe making music, but maybe mixing music and then the photos.
Okay.
In my opinion.
We've got collaboration groups too, which is basically a screen at the end and then people around the table with what I call a puck, so that they can control the TV, you can use conferences on it. We thought initially at Fountaindale that it would be a high demand. It really wasn't. Nobody wanted to, there wasn't a great demand for it, but it depends again on your community and what's available elsewhere in your community as to whether people will come and use it here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, maybe one that could be done as a study room as well as a multi-purpose.
Sure, yeah.
That's
Like
what I was thinking, like an innovation type room that
Yeah.
allows it to be customized as new tech comes,
Okay.
but doesn't have a special one focus, going to the whole theme of flexibility,
Yeah.
but allows and maybe has a, just use your example, maybe it can get that computer in there if, you know, someone wants to do that, but it also could just be a study room when no one else is using
It
it.
might be kind of grouped in with the one above, the study space.
Sure.
It's all kind of one collaboration space. We're
Sure.
not adding extra spaces for that one again.
Maybe just storage for whatever the special equipment that it would need to have would be. I mean, I agree that we want the flexibility, and I think the reason is it didn't show up in the 2017 community survey that this was, you know, a strong want from the community. And, you know, you can do the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come argument, but I really don't know, you even kind of alluded to it, they can build it, but they don't
They're not
come.
using it.
So I think we'd be better off hedging our bets
Yeah.
and making space that could be used for it if there's demand, and if there isn't
Yeah.
demand, it pulls back and becomes a different purpose.
Yeah.
That we know we
Yeah,
can.
that flexibility again.
Yeah.
What about 3D printers and being able to do work on a 3D printer? And I mean, is there any demand for that, do you think, here, or do you, what you want? Do you think it's a good thing, or, I mean?
It goes back to
Hope the people who
community.
listen to this YouTube video send us a postcard if they have been waiting for it, because I haven't heard, have you heard, Tatiana?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's been on our list, but a 3D printer can fit right here.
Yeah.
And it can be the size of a large microwave, or you can have one the size of the podium.
Yeah.
So, and they can be on a cart.
Yeah.
They can be in a room, and if we have a room that's specialized, like maybe with maybe some acoustic tiles, and
Yeah.
that can also be serve as a meeting room if it ends up not being.
Yeah. Probably like, again, same thing, in my opinion, this starts small on that, like, where it's on the card, again, the flexibility, the what have you, just to see if, I mean, if it takes off, then we could, you know, expand from there, but I would probably something small like that, yeah.
What
So, I
about a
mean,
green screen?
Pardon me?
What about a green screen?
Yeah, that could be another room that's, study room would have a
And that's the room actually I was thinking about in Downers Grove, and that's why I heard it was, I don't know. So, I mean, again, but if it's flexibility, if you
That's
sort of,
what we're looking at. I
yeah,
think we
yeah.
want a little bit extra space, but it's more, not so much.
A dedicated space
A
for it.
dedicated space, it's really flex space, and maybe some storage that can accommodate that. And it's a good thing to know for us, because storage is a lot cheaper to build than a finished offer. So we're going to go back to what it takes to build.
When we did Fountaindale, we've got, on the right-hand side, we've got sound studios, and we've got 6 of those. On the left-hand side, we've got 2 major filming studios with all technology and everything else. And we thought the studios with all the video and everything else would be hugely demanded, and the sound studios probably not used much. Quite the reverse. You just don't know until you actually get there, but the sound studios are constantly in use, and there's always a demand for.
Well, it's
video
podcasting.
Yeah.
It's podcasting that's taken off, and then you can make a video on your phone with the same
Yeah.
quality of
Yeah.
the stuff in the library.
So, you know, technology advances.
So speaking of technology, everything else, and I'll look into who's using technology the most, teen spaces. Right now, when you walk through the youth department, you don't have that dedicated teen space. Some libraries need that and have a need for it, and others, you know, kind of fit it in. Do you see a need for that? Is there
Well,
any-
aren't teen books on the first floor anyway? They're not upstairs, so they're on the adult services floor, so
The older teens, yeah.
there's not, I mean, where are they? They don't really have a place to go. Like, they might be sitting on the floor in the library in the aisles, they might be, you know, and I don't know if that's what we want, or if we want to have something that's more conducive for them to be sitting and, you know,
Space.
yeah.
And maybe I think what we've heard so far, really the only space we're kind of looking at potentially adding would be some entrance type rework, maybe a little bit of the youth, but maybe that's where you have a little bit of an option, at least to price out for now. Adding a little bit for accommodating the teen space. And then that way it's on the a la carte option, and
Yeah.
the second was that, and that's no, maybe so later on. So that one is hard to put in, because you're going to put in some, not significant square footage, but some square footage, some real square footage. It's not just a 60 square foot restroom. If it's 2 people, it's a little bit larger. And so the question, if you're going to keep it existing floor plate that we see as a challenge, is what would you want to displace?
Right.
And I don't know that you have, and I'm open to your suggestions and input, but I don't know that you have space to lose the youth department side. I don't know that you have space to
Not on the
lose
youth
as
side.
adult side.
But if you're expanding on either the west or the north side, you would allow for that space.
Yep,
And
exactly.
what about how much space typically do you see? I mean, like the size library that we have, how much space would you recommend?
Well, I guess how much demand do you see? Do you see?
Well, I'm sure
10
they get
kids
lots of
coming in?
kids after school from St. John's and other areas.
And we've seen one DeKalb, they have the one room in their historical wing, or it was about a room this size, maybe a little bit bigger, but, and they had a little bit of split area, but about this size, the split not huge, but enough that you had a couple couches, you had a little bit of area, and I think Elmhurst has an area that it's actually split, they have a screen wall in the middle where they have one side that's more lounge, and one side that teens will go and actually play video games or whatever else.
Yeah.
But it's not huge. So maybe if you're adding a square footage for the entrance or,
Right,
that's
you
where
have
use it.
plenty, right.
That's a little added space, but not much.
One thing we've kind of seen is that teen study rooms are very valuable to them as well. They get a group of 4 in there. You've got to have a glass door there. So, but they do congregate in there and they do study in there, and it's very much in demand. Gaming obviously is another function that, some families can't do it at home, so they come to the library to do the gaming on a screen here as well, and get community build up with the other teams. And it seems like it's a space that's gaining popularity.
Do you see other libraries adding those gaming-specific places within their facility?
They're not so much adding as increasing. Increasing the space and isolating the space from the adult side of things as well.
And so
The young.
Which right now is not the case. You go up there and take my son up there, you'll have kids playing pre-teen to teen games, and then you've got toddlers running around with them. So.
having a little bit of split seems to be in demand.
And especially if you've got a school nearby where they all come over here after school, there's a demand there, but I don't know.
I mean, I think Will can attest to that. We have throngs of children after school.
Yeah, can we phone a friend? Can we ask?
We can call phone a friend, yes. I mean, we have it up and downstairs. So
Put you on the spot.
Step up, Will.
There are no team games that are played on the screen upstairs, so Cohen is fine.
I was a little worried. So.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get that out. Yeah, we see they come in shifts. St. Joan gets out before the Lisle kids. And we've actually seen an uptick in the junior high kids showing up this year because the elementary school has moved. So the junior high kids know they can come here and they don't have to see their little brother or their little sister or the kid that lives down the street.
And what spaces do they flow to currently?
They go to everywhere. The group study rooms are constantly at 222. There's St. Joan kids downstairs in the study rooms. We tried to have a meeting yesterday and it was difficult to say the least because there were 15 kids trying to talk in that space and the ventilation connects and so we could hear everything they're talking about. And then they'll also go upstairs into our junior high section where we have our TV and then they kind of glom out as needed. And then they like being outside when the weather's nice. They use the hardscape a lot. They tend to just be anywhere outside when it's nice out. But now once it gets a little colder, the 2 spaces we see the most, or 3 spaces are our computers, our junior high corner, and then the 2 study rooms right by the teen materials.
I'm sold. I think we need a dedicated space for what was just described here because then those spaces that they're going to that are not dedicated for them become too cramped for everybody else who wants to use them. We talk about youth services not having quite enough space, and I think that would alleviate that if it was really truly a kid space, not a teen space.
There's a noise level associated.
Yeah, and then we talk about the importance of these group and study spaces, and if they weren't also there, then that would help.
Would the study spaces, though, alleviate some of that if they had more study rooms?
Upstairs?
Or downstairs?
Yeah, more study space would definitely help.
Did we talk about adding more study space?
Well,
That wasn't, we
no,
were
we
talking
just-
about
well,
adding. Because we were trying to reconfigure, that's what I heard Marty say.
Yeah, I know, reconfigure, yes, so,
That's, you're talking about more study
Well,
space means more square.
no, I
footage.
understand, so,
Well, I think the challenge too is if you were to, what I'm hearing right now is we have these teams go and put them in a space that's away and allows for the use of the spaces.
well, it's an à la carte.
Yep,
yeah,
yeah,
so-
exactly. So we'll give you some of that back
Yeah.
and forth. And that's what it is. It's okay if we get a little bit of dedicated team space and then some flex and what's the uptake there. Okay.
My thought is with this whole thing, it's, let's see what we can do with the existing square footage, butt that up against what our priorities are, what we have decided due to our strategic plan, due to our values, due to the feedback that we get, what we need. And does that work, or are we out of space? And if we're out of space, what's the incremental? That to me is the order of operations.
Okay.
You know, Jenny, I kind of did that because I thought that was our assignment. So, rather than, I mean, I just put some notes down. Do you just want to
Yeah.
have these? You want to,
That sounds great.
yeah.
Okay.
Should I?
Wait.
Oh, I have,
I don't know.
yeah, I-
Copies for all?
well, yeah, I don't know if you guys want copies.
Paper's good.
Paper's good. I don't know if I made enough for everybody.
I'll cheat off.
We can make-
Okay.
do it.
Okay.
And if there's something that, this poem that you would.
Here's, Tony, here's for the front row.
There's that one, I'll take a copy.
You sure?
One that- it's fine.
All right.
As long as you
There
get
might be
it.
more.
There's a.
Okay.
Perfect. We got it. There you
Oh,
go.
no? All right.
You could, that one too.
You want mine? Sorry, I don't have enough.
Okay, let's get some solutions. This is good.
Okay.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
I kind of broke it down into, again, these are just like my priorities of page 1 is what to address now, and then page 2 was what to address in the future. And it sounds like we might go a different way, which is fine. It's just like one person brainstorming by herself. It gets lonely when you do that. But one of the things, I think our number one issue is space for the children's area. And, you know, the way I wanted to solve that is to build the addition to the north, which would, you know, take away the employee parking lot, which then the number one issue becomes there's no place to park for the employees. So then you have to solve that issue, but then you also have to look at the patron parking. So it's, you know, parking in general, it's a good thing we have those two adjacent lots.
Okay.
Then we also have to fold in the electrical and stormwater issues, which come out of the maintenance report. So those I would want folded in and become part of any addition.
Okay.
Second floor bathroom, I think is critical. That would, in my mind, become part of the addition. I think we need an entrance on Front Street, especially because that is our address, right? I mean, it's kind of bizarre, we don't have an entrance up front.
Did you originally have an entrance on Front Street?
Yes.
And you changed that?
That's what that atrium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
The flagpole's still over there.
Yeah, good one. Then there's a lot of exterior maintenance that needs to be done, okay, over the next 10 years, that comes out of the FQC, and I would fold that into this addition as well, okay?
I'm gonna ask a question, here's something that we took some pictures, especially Graham. It's his favorite question. The aesthetic you have right now, right, and let's take into account that there might be some maintenance issues, and we need to look at that. But I'm gonna flip forward to a couple pages, and you can't see it very well. But just the wood siding, the stone and things like that, is that something we can live with, or is that a priority to kind of modernize on?
You
Okay,
just talking about painting it, or?
I'm opening my ears.
okay, here it says, building exterior in terms of updating look, okay?
I underlined that.
Okay, that I've incorporated into the addition under exterior
You're
maintenance.
thinking we need to update that, take the stone and.
Barney Rubble's been dead and gone a while, okay?
You made Graham's day, by the way. Just-
You what?
Great.
Okay, okay. Then I think, see what I did is, after I did a solution, it creates a new problem.
Yeah.
Okay? So then the next problem is how do we fund this? Okay? And so what I was hoping is we could fund it through a couple different ways. The first one I thought about was increased efficiencies. And I'm hoping we can reduce per capita costs, and we know how we compare to other similarly sized libraries. Okay, so we can go through all that. And some ideas that we've talked about as a group is creating a single circulation desk, maybe combining the technical support and reference desks, having a prominent self-service hold pickup area and return kiosks. That would require RFID, and that would also, RFID implementation would help us with simplified inventory and be easier to do.
So to this point, I think what we have, and we'll capture all this in there, and I'll flip a couple pages ahead just so you can see it. We're going to go through some funding, and what we want to do is get your input like this to see if we can work through the next board meeting that we meet with you guys and put some numbers to some of this, put some numbers to all the different options in the pools, and see, okay, what does that actually get versus what the solutions, the building solutions are, and allow you guys to kind of weigh what you want to spend from what pool and what those numbers really are. Because there's a lot of options out there. And so I think what we do is we take that, I think everything above that line will add to the space study, we'll call it, and everything below that line is going to be the funding study, and that'll be incorporated in there.
Right, and as far as space creation, remember, if we can combine a couple of these larger desk areas, like the technical support and the reference desk, I don't have floor plans, so I can't tell you what amount of space we're freeing up. But think about just one of those areas might free up enough space for a teen area, teen rooms. And, I'm just, trying to, in my mind, think about that. So even though we think we don't have any first floor space to free up, we actually might.
I think we take a look at the, and what we can do is say, okay, the teen space, what's this room size? Come back and say, okay, if we were to add all that space up, does that fit in the first floor plate? And that way, we're not trying to design it, we're not trying to add walls here, there, this and that. We're saying, okay, we have 20,000 square feet to play with down there. What the, all the spaces put together that you want to put down there are 22,000. Does it fit, or does some space have to get smaller or larger? And then allow you guys to say, okay, you know what, that teen space maybe doesn't need to be 500 square feet, let's make it 300 square feet, and everything does fit.
Right.
So part of it, we're not going to go and, at this stage, lay things out, but what we can do is take a look, these are the spaces we want to fit in the floor plate, at this level, on that level, or do we want to push and pull the exterior to make it bigger? So exactly that point.
And in terms of roughing things out, I know in homes we do that all the time. I'm not sure if in commercial buildings and, public entities like what we are, if we consider that. Like,
putting in for future.
Well, like, let's say we can't afford to do all the bathroom types that we want right now. Can we rough it out to save? Yeah, to save that money, because, if we're going to make any additions, the time to rough it out is now. Even if we're, if we need to save, and I know it's not going to save millions, I know it's going to save a few thousand, but, maybe postpone finishing it in the next year or the next couple of years.
Let's see what the costs of what you want to do are and what the funding options are. And then the next step after that, if you think there is a project down the road that adds value out of this exercise or smaller, future conversations that you have, when it's appropriate, then you look and say, okay, we need to maybe rough out or rough in shelf space or else look at those options. But I really think this exercise is more, what do we need, how we balance what we have, and then we can take that step, the next step, and make it really balanced. This program is going to do exactly what you're saying, we balance it.
Question for you.
Yep.
This is semi-new space, existing space. One, and I know we're talking about jumping, that's
Yeah, that's great.
completely fine. The staff space, when I went through the tour here, I was shocked at the little space that the staff is provided, and being the backbone of the institution. I mean, I think, I don't know, we've talked a lot about the pages, I want to make sure that, I don't know, when you guys are looking through that, I think the staff space is a little outdated in the sense of the size, and you know what you see like in new facilities. So that may be solved, or a little meeting area for them, so they could do the work of the library when they don't need to go find a meeting room to go to. But I think that that's key, because that will make them better at their jobs, not to say that they're not. But also,
It'll give them the efficiencies they need to.
that was the right word.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually, that lends itself to the question that I had, kind of overlooking all of these different existing space renovation scope items. So these are the ones that were pulled out from your strategic plan. One question I had, when we start moving things and moving around, it's really tough to just go and say, okay, we're going to move this, move that, but not renovate most of, if not all of the finishes. And the reason for that is, if we're adding a space down there, we need electrical to it, we need to go take out the ceilings and everything else, and some of it's already been done, you need to replace ceilings. Is it the correct assumption on our end at this point for this first report to go and look and say, you know what, we're going to be taking out the ceilings throughout the space. We're going to be looking at least painting and moving walls throughout the space. We're going to be looking at putting in new floors and carpeting, because you're going to need to do that in the next 10 years anyways. And capturing all that, or do we need to be more selective than that?
A la carte, I would say. I mean, probably, but obviously the electrical work is gonna probably need to be done.
That means everything of all the walls.
Sure. If it needs to be done, sure.
Okay. So I think that kind of alleviates some of the stuff, the existing space, saying, okay, we're going to need to go and do some of the staff space as part of this, because
Oh, sure.
we're not leaving it alone.
Oh, yeah.
We're really going wholesale through this and updating things.
I mean, I think if we were gonna do it, independent of anything that happens, let's just make sure it all looks uniform, and, like, I don't want, like, 3/4 of it has all new finishes, and then we got this little corner that still looks like 2001, right? Like, it's gotta all be uniform.
Has to flow.
It has to flow, right?
I think that's generally the right decision in the long run, because whatever little cost savings you get by just doing things in small things, let alone the aesthetics, but, also the electrical and everything else that you get. I think I can hear my father saying, do it once, do it right. I was trying to just paint the cabinets in the kitchen and, do a little bit here and a little bit there, and it's like, no. I mean, I'm looking at that picture on the far right, and I'm saying, how would we better utilize that? And, like, I see walls that maybe need to kind of move already, and whatever it is that we want to do to optimize, I think we need to be open to changing where the walls, where the structures are currently, and then carpet goes right along with that.
And electrical.
Yeah.
Everything else. Okay. I kind of covered most of this, and a couple quick things, but higher level. And this more ties into the new building option for shelving and things of that nature. Are we going to, we're going to take a look at this holistic, we're not going to go identify each shelving piece, but are you looking at more opportunities to market the collection you have, and not have all the books you possibly can have? In other words, you can get shelving units that are 84 inches tall and have 5 shelves, and no one can reach the top one and everything else. Or you can, or the bottom. Or you have these other ones that are maybe a little lower, and you actually have the books facing out that people are kind of flipping through, almost like they used to do with DVDs when they're at Barnes and Noble or whatever else. A little bit more accessible, marketed, or even back here, these are the taller shelves. There's only 3 shelves, but they're faced out, not in. People can see it. Is it more important to have a large collection or to market books to you? And there are different libraries in different communities.
What do you see what trend do you see?
We see a lot more of the marketing now going on, where it might not be the whole stack, but they're saying, okay, when you come into a space, you want to have some select items really kind of keyed up there. The high volume pieces that are kind of
Books and things of that nature.
I think a combination would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to that point, would you take some of your existing shelves, maybe and use it for the stacks that are more traditional, utilize some of that, maybe reface the wood end panels and things like that, that, and then try to build in a little bit of new. So we're not going completely all new with shelving and everything else, we're really trying to utilize some of what we have already, and then putting in some key pieces. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
This question, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was gonna say, I agree with that, and I also know at the new school that, where they have now their learning center in the middle there, that in their library or learning center, like the stacks are movable.
Okay.
I don't, would we need, so would there be a reason that we would, I mean, I like it. 'Cause it's-
Remember, those decks are very low
No, I
for
get it,
children.
yeah.
So I don't know if you want to move.
Like,
Children's I would agree with, but.
Okay,
not-
Not for
okay,
adults.
okay, but even like if we do have any smaller stacks, if we wind up going with some of that, or, I guess I'm deferring
This
this
is for you,
thing.
but
Okay,
yes, I mean, I think that it makes sense in some areas.
okay.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That was my comment. I want to defer to the staff on this one. You guys have the better pulse. You guys are the librarians. None of us on the board are librarians, last I checked. And I think this question really should be answered by them.
I mean, part of our question is that when you look at the shelving, are you looking at all new shelving? Are you looking at 50%? I mean, typically, it's an area where you can be fiscally responsible.
Sure.
And, if you're looking to expand the collection significantly, then you're going to need some new. Are we able to use existing? I mean, I don't know the answer. Villa Park, what they did is they sent all bit by bit by bit, phased it out to be repainted on the shelving, brought it back and put it up again. And they saved probably about $80,000 just doing that, and it looks incredible. So there are ways and means of doing it.
Sure.
But what we've got to do is try and put something in budget
Sure.
for shelving. So I think maybe we.
I don't think we need to expand the number of shelves we have.
Okay.
I think, but allowing for some flex
Just-
shelving
Yeah.
is.
We'll just put some in that's, yeah.
A mix.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about too is just more visible signage. So like you can, from like further away, then you can say, oh, wait, I can tell that I need to go over there because that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, or whatever, like, in just even in adult services or in youth services, whatever, just to kind of help. As opposed to just looking at the end of the shelving, okay, this is where it is, I can see from maybe higher up above, or from the ceiling, or above the shelves, or something that says, oh, points me in the right direction.
It's those large signs are on top.
Like
of the
a large
shelf.
signage.
You can see from 30 feet back.
Yeah.
And that's relevant for fiction. Okay.
Yeah, we can maybe put something in for some additional shelving, not much, and then end panel reverberation, and put an allowance in for that, and then see where we are and overall.
I do think this we have lower ceilings than some other libraries too, so you get, lowering some of the shelving a little bit will help too, just make it feel a little more open.
In terms of automation, RFID, things like that, is it something we want to build in as part of the building project?
Yes.
We
Yes.
can start implementing that this year, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
so.
it's part of our budget for this next fiscal year.
Okay, so when we work with staff, we're looking at that one, instead of, we need to allocate some funds for this, but we get all of it, that we need to start from scratch.
Sure.
Okay. And then I think we kind of covered the circulation processes and really redundancies, that kind of fell in line with your staff comments and your circulation, so I want to park on that, unless you had any other thoughts that we need to cover there.
I agree.
Entrance, exterior appearance, you guys covered most of these already, so that was good, I'm actually liking this conversation, we're just kind of checking off the boxes. Hospitable foyer, we talked about maybe a little bit updates in the front on the entrance here, maybe a second entrance, or at least see how we can get them to play together potentially. Safety, drop off. So one thing I wanted to bring up is, would you potentially just do some modifications to your drive aisles or whatever else as part of a project here to better the vehicle drop off? And right now when you drive in, if you're coming on from the south side, you make a left-hand turn, and your kids, if you're coming out from the passenger side, are going out away. A lot of times what we see libraries do now, they switch it. So the driver's side is actually on the outside of the building, and the kids get out on the passenger side next to the building. Do we need to make some accommodations and look at your site plan, maybe modify some of those things, or no?
Well, we actually switched the flow of the parking lot, I don't know, how many years ago, was that 5 or 6 years ago? So originally, the entrance was on Front Street, and then you came up and then came out on Kingston, then we flipped it, reversed it. Now, was part of the problem, when it was the other way, then it become a backup because everybody was kind of parked or idling over here by the entrance?
Well, people would get up to the top of the hill here
And stop.
and stop,
Their children.
Yeah.
or go too fast and people were crossing
Sure.
from parking. It was just a congested area.
Okay. So we have to maybe take a look at that and see if there's going to be some
Yeah.
tweaks, we'll call it, not
Yeah.
changes, but tweaks to
Yeah.
make it better efficient.
I mean, if we wind up going with the second entrance, I mean, that probably, I would envision would probably be the more likely for a drop-off area
Mhm.
than up here, but I mean, if this still is the main, yeah, this becomes the main entrance still, or even if it's one of two, but still the main entrance, yeah, so I mean, that's, you guys got to, I defer to you guys.
Yeah. Well, what happens on it, I think what we do is just kind of say, okay, we're looking at the site, we think we're gonna have to make some modifications
Sure.
to the asphalt pavements, some curbs and gutters and things like that, and allow for that. So that once we figure out after this à la carte piece is done, we know, okay, are we gonna focus on it or not? And we find it from there. I've got the entrance comment, presence to the community, one intended that one actually. I heard the comment earlier that we want to be in Front Street, and then that you needed to make that more of a signature. So I went up and took the picture from front Kingston. That's your front right now. Does that need to be, what are your thoughts?
It looks nice in the fall.
So I just want to make sure that we should accommodate for landscaping or doing something to tie the entrance into.
Now, when you say, are you like, when you talk about landscaping, are you talking about, like trimming the trees or how did?
For you, and do you want that to be something that it stands out if you have someone driving?
Well, I guess what would I, besides, but just, because obviously the only thing I would be like, you know, trimming the trees back to make it more visual, but like what other ideas or concepts do you see?
Well, if you put a front entrance on you do that, and you bump it out towards the western side, maybe that becomes a little bit more of a prevalent space or some signage there, maybe it's the library logo or something along that lines. Allow for taking down some trees to allow the drop off, something of that nature we can accommodate.
And part of the question is that currently your landscaping obscures the view of the library. So is that something that's deliberate? Is that something you want? Or is that something you want to change?
It would need to be clean and sleek. I mean, by removing a lot of that, you have the potential to make it look more open and welcoming.
Yeah.
People will be like, oh wow, look, you know, it's really nice. And it doesn't have to cost a fortune. I mean, they could do native plants, some native plants and flowers and stuff. I know you guys have the butterfly stuff going.
I think,
You know, things like that, things
I think
that
we
are.
could kill two birds with one stone
Yeah.
here. We could improve the aesthetics and we could achieve the bullet point here in the strategic plan to make outdoor spaces more welcoming and, you know, to be able to be used.
To get to the benches.
So, you know, I think we see a little bit of tree removal in our future, and that would not be, you know, a $2 million project, so, I think we could all get behind that.
Yeah.
We'd have some site work just kind of.
Site work, yeah, I mean, you know,
I was gonna
when we
say.
talked about how
I'm a tree
there's,
hugger.
you know, parking becomes a problem for Summer Reed, right? Well, because they're in the parking lot, and if instead we had, you know, an area that wasn't blocked by trees and you could actually get to,
And
that
that
might
was
be
a
enough.
hill.
And one of the
Yeah,
things
some
we can.
accessibility
Yeah.
issues there.
Yeah, well, that's actually what's kind of shown in the top picture, that's your bench, and to get there for universal design, you can't get there. And I just taking a picture from the other side, and you have to walk up the hill to get to the benches on the slant and everything else, but I think the important thing too to look at is most of those actually are trees. So when you look by that, they're overgrown.
Shrubs.
If they're even shrubs, you know, that's something that just spread it became a tree. So maybe take a look at it, just like being.
Yeah, if it's like an invasive tree or plant or bush, whatever, then that might be good. But I mean, like Marge kind of alluded, We gotta be sensitive with the whole kind of.
This is the tree village.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Arboretum,
Yeah.
Well, we can have a memorial
I don't-
service and we
no,
can
no,
plant a
no.
new one somewhere else for each one we take.
Well, how about if we bring it up to the, like,
Good at pruning would be wonderful, but
what about if we bring it up to the Planning and Zoning Commission standards? You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I mean, the Village of Lisle has standards.
They do, and actually, part of it is they go to the village forester or the engineering
Right.
department takes a look at that and can say, okay, this is what we look at. Typically, they look for the design team that eventually becomes part of the project. The actual designers will work with those people to fine tune what that is and identify what is a tree that
Or an
is a tree
arborist.
and what is not a tree.
Or an arborist.
The experts in them. So I think, like you're saying, you bring it up to the village standards, kind of allow your designers, once you get to that point, to make it work.
Because if we don't, we have potential problems down the
Sure,
road.
yeah.
Wasn't the library known for its landscaping at one point?
We are still.
Still, okay, I mean that, well,
Very nice planting.
so, yeah, I mean, but I think like this is an opportunity also to
Step it up.
to step it up, but, and I'm with Trustee Barcelli, it pains me every time one tree falls, but
Yeah.
I think this is one of those times where we have to maybe do it, but because it is from a sight line, but it's as long as in the design, we're not doing that, remember, Arboretum Village will be good.
Right.
What we're talking about here is just the amount and the degree of dollars we're going to
Yes.
put
Sure,
into
yeah.
it. We're
Right.
not,
Yeah.
we're not going to redo everything from what I'm hearing.
Sure.
We're going to be basically doing something, so we'll put some dollars in for it, and as we get further along, then it'll become.
I think President Hummel will get out there and pull those shrubs.
Yeah, I did, yeah, I cut down a tree last Friday, yeah.
See, he's been practicing.
and their
Oh,
chainsaws.
I found another one, you can have this one.
I mean, but when you do look at that picture on the bottom left,
Oh, it's awful.
you can't see the building.
Right.
That's right.
And I rarely come from that way. I'm usually heading north on Kingston, and so I don't typically see this. But, I mean, really, like, where's the library?
That's why I joked, it looks nice in the fall.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as visibility of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
library, I can see why it would be confusing for some people trying to come for the first time, not knowing where we are.
And the other thing is, you really can't be proud of that. I mean, think about it.
Well, we'll put some dollars in, you know.
And then I think as part of this, you guys are architect and your stormwater drainage will kind of play into that. And there's adequate funding where there's not covered right now. I'll just ask about that. But signage, I'm assuming you just want a little bit of signage uptick in terms of wayfinding and come in, this is the entrance, that's the entrance.
Uh-huh.
And it's gonna match the new exterior, right?
Exterior lighting, right?
That's not even a priority.
Do we have to go all the way to the Jetsons or can we go somewhere in between Fred Flintstone and
All right, we're almost there, guys.
All right.
The last one is kind of, I think everything we've already covered. Your architect and your HVAC components, I think what we look to do is that where we're reconfiguring things, you'd be upgrading it or making it work with a new configuration. Same thing with IT infrastructure, make sure there's enough IT infrastructure in there. Won't have to regurgitate that, but if there's something specific that you think, hey, we need this for IT or we need that for HVAC, such as do you need to look at your storage and have that air conditioning and heating, or if it's sufficient right now, then we'll lean to it.
I don't know.
So we can work on that. The other one is lighting. I want to highlight that. But on the bottom left is your current plan right now in your radial lighting system. On the right-hand side is more of a uniform, just perpendicular lights that go across. And the reason why I picked this picture is actually elements from our old projects. But you can see the different layouts that are underneath the lighting. It allows for flexibility. You have just general stacks, you have open floor plan, you have stacks that are at an angle, and it lights the whole thing with a bunch of shadow lines. If you were to leave your ceiling alone, which I'm thinking we're going to be changing now, for hearing on Scott topics, your lighting's getting a little more uniform, so you can have the flexibility to put different spaces underneath the correct? All right, so,
Is that with LED lighting?
of course. And actually, part of the reason for that is that the longevity,
Right.
I think is a benefit to the the
Right.
library.
It's a cost
And
savings
it's
too.
cost saving of the operations, and even just to meet the modern energy code that comes into play.
LED used to be very expensive, but it's.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, so were microwaves back in the day.
All right, so I think.
So I should get one?
If you have what we did in school, you listen to what we do, we'll kind of come back with some a la carte options and kind of play with what that is next meeting, with some recommendations, and maybe see how that aligns in more detail. But the next step of it is balancing all of that with funding, so turn it over to Graham.
I just want to say again, we're not designers. We're not coming back to you with drawings or anything of that nature. This is just a very, very preliminary order of magnitude based on your priorities, giving you an idea of what you can afford or what monies might be available. And that's what we're looking at here, project funding.
Before you get into that, actually, part of it is being fiscally responsible, to make sure we're all on the same page. When you go and start designing things, you're spending money on designers. But if you don't want to spend that money on something you don't have the funds for. So that's part of our task here, is to say, okay, what can you afford to start having someone look at designs and spending money before you go down that road.
Because it gets expensive pretty quick. And the further along with the process you go, the quicker you spend your money. So it helps to know where you are. Well, we've got a number of ideas for project funding that we've seen used before. We can utilize library reserves, and again, that's how much do you want to put in and how much do you want to keep back and which reserves do you want to contribute. There's no answers today, and there is no right answer or wrong answer. It's entirely your money, and you make the decision. Borrowing options, look at, it's kind of a mortgage, for want of a better description, where you borrow money and you pay it back so much per year. And we'll get, what we'd like to do is to get a financial expert in who does it for a lot of libraries, and we can get him in for free to give you a talk, and just give you some idea that if you borrowed a sum of money, your payments would be this amount over X number of years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But it'll give you a feel for what commitment you could make and what you feel comfortable making. And we've already got an idea from it, it was a calculation. And get them to come in and talk to you about it without costing you anything, just get some idea as to what you prefer to commit to or what you feel comfortable committing to. So that's what we'd like to do for the next meeting. It wouldn't take long, I don't think. But it'll give you an idea.
If you're open to it, I think it makes sense to bring them in. And what it does is look at your current budgets and your historical budgets and figure out, okay, without impacting your budget significantly, what can you do? You know, without having to go out to the public and say, hey, we need more money, what can you do? And again, being fiscally responsible.
I don't want to pay for that service. I give it, it's free.
Would that be after your report comes in?
I think it's part of it. Because you want that expert to tell you, you know, we can take a look at it and kind of take some steps, but the expert who does it day in, day out, just like a designer goes in day out, their design on this thing, they're going to have a pulse on what the rates are going for right now, what options are out there. They'll know how to analyze your finances to the point where this is how much you can actually afford and this is how much you get out of it. So if you're open to the idea, what we can do is talk to them and say, okay, why don't you come with us the next time? We'll let them kind of walk you through the different options ahead of us talking. We'll have that information ahead of time you guys play. And then that way we come in right after that same meeting and say, okay, hearing that, these are the different options you've heard. Let's talk about your funding options and see where it goes.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
It gives you an idea of what your commitment might be. The next one is referendum. I don't know what the feeling is, whether you like the idea of a referendum or whether you don't. Referendums at the moment, generally the public are saying, whoa, my taxes are high enough, I don't want to pay anymore. And a lot of referendums are failing. But, you know, if you want a significant amount of money, referendum is probably your best route to go down. So I don't know whether you feel the community would accept a referendum or not. That's entirely a decision you can make. And that's something else you can advise on as to what your commitment would be if you were to get some bonds from a referendum. So, I don't know, is there any thought process on a referendum?
I personally would not want to go to a referendum,
Okay.
but I'm not speaking.
But in
for-
I mean,
terms-
let's
Yeah.
just have it out
Yeah.
there, you know? I mean, if nobody wants to go to referendum, that's fine, we'll take it off the table. If people do, then we'll leave it on there. I mean, it's...
I think it's too early to tell because we don't know what the
Okay.
dollars
No,
are
that's
that we're
fine.
talking about. If we're talking about something that we could almost fund internally already, then no need for it. But if we're
Okay.
talking about a significant sum, the people's voice should be heard, even if we don't like what we hear, it should still be heard, in my opinion.
Okay, no, that's fine, that's a good approach. It's just something that's out there, and it's a method of getting funding. Some boards like it, some boards say it's not going to happen, we'll never pass. I mean, we've been at Plainfield, where they went for referendum twice. Once they just failed, the second time they didn't get out there to do all the, how can I put it, the obtaining of votes, knocking on doors and doing as much as they should, and it came back worse. But they wanted to go to referendum because they needed a bigger sum of money to do what they needed to do. So I think you're right, it's a little early to just take it off the table. When you see what you can get without going to referendum, and then you compare it with what you want, then that's the time, and if there's a significant difference, then maybe you have to consider it. But it's open, it's an option.
And there are some such stories too. I think of the parts that didn't pass a referendum, or that are splitting right now. So it's really up to the board and up to the community at that point. So
Villa Park passed, Fountaindale passed. We've had a few that have passed, Oak Park passed. I mean, there's a number that have gone. But it's an option. The other one that's out there is partnerships with a public-private developer, and you want to talk
yeah, I'll
about
take that one. And actually, I want to spin off of this one too, to talk about everything that we talked about scope-wise and regurgitate that. That is something that we'll take for the downtown options, right? I don't want to forget the fact that we're looking at a downtown option as well. Because from what we know, there's been at least 2 developers that have reached out and said, hey, we want to have a discussion about what's out there. We don't know what the developers are willing to give, what they need to get, or any of that information. But it's something that I think, if developers are out there saying, hey, we want to talk about it, you think as a board and as a community that it is a fit to have a library downtown, then I think same thing with referendum, same thing with borrowing options, or else let's hear it out. Let's get it. Let's get all the information you can, do your due diligence, and go from there. I listed a couple of precedents there that we've done some research on. There's more than these 2. I know not on the list of Boston, that they had some different things going on there. There's a couple other places, but for instance, I wanted to just highlight these for a couple different reasons. One, there are some challenges with it. Home Library, I don't know if everyone knows the backstory there.
Is they building it yet?
Yeah.
No, they're not. So the Park District and the library didn't have a partnership, it was an agreement back and forth. And they basically, what ended up happening is Home Plum didn't have sole control of the building process. And when you lose that control and you're in a partnership, you have to be aware of what your risks are. And the risk came to haunt them in that instance. Now they're stalled out. And it just became too many people wanting too many different things, and no one came to an agreement. So that's kind of the bad end. Another option is West End Library in DC. They are actually a tenant library with a larger mixed-use development. There's pros and cons to being a tenant. Pro is that you're not necessarily taking care of all the exterior and everything else. Con is that developer can come back 20, 25 years from now and say, hey, rates going up for rent, we're taking your lease away, and next thing you know, you don't have reserves in stock to build a new library somewhere else. So you have to kind of weigh that risk with, look at an option. And that's something we can talk about, or you guys can think about and say, is that what you want? Another successful project is Rockford Public Library, what they're looking at right now. Rockford Public Library owned land downtown. Now, they're building what, I don't know if anyone knows history there, but they have a comment vault underneath it that had to get remediated. ComEd basically had to come and say, we're taking down your building, we're going to build you a new one. But they also owned a bunch of property around it. So Rockford went out and put out an RFQ to developers and said, we'd love to hear what you want to do with the other half of our property. call out that it's not quite public yet what the exact agreement is because it's still being negotiated behind closed doors. But they're getting, I don't know if it's a dollar amount or something built for them as part of this agreement. And they're working with the developer, Bush, out of Iowa. So there's some opportunities there to kind of use some of the tools that you have to get something back. Another one that was good was East Branch Public Library in Wisconsin. What they did there is they have air rights over their building. It's something that maybe is applicable to a downtown site here. And that if your building only used to be 1 story or 2 stories, and the developer comes in and says they want to build a 5-story building or a 4-story building, those air rights above your space that have value potentially. Would you look at potentially selling air rights or working with the developer to say, okay, you know, we occupy the site for some back and forth? I think it's, if there are developers out there, which we think there are 2 right now that are real and at least having a conversation, do you want us to hear them out? What we can do is between the next meeting, at least put a call out and say, hey, we hear you have some interest in talking to the library. What are the things you're willing to talk about? And really just be a sounding board and work with your staff. And really, we don't want to be CCS going out and talking to developers. We want the library talking to the developer and being at the side to make sure that, you know, there's the technical side of it and the expertise is there to support staff and hear what they have to say. And go, okay, what do you want to do to develop with the property that you might be looking at purchasing and acquiring? And why did you want the library involved in that, or what portion of the library you want involved with that? And just hear them out.
Yeah, does that ask the hard questions? You know, are you giving us the land for free? Are you making us lease it? Are you making us build our own building? Are you paying us for this building and the land we've got? What's the deal? Where are we? I mean, any developer comes, yeah. I mean, it's the honeymoon period. So, but what is the deal? Where are you? You know, is it real? Are you expecting the library to pay for a whole new building and then you're going to charge them a lease? What are you thinking?
Isn't that dependent on the land that they're trying to develop though as well? So I guess my question is, I want to hear from them, but what is the land that these 2 developers have eyed or expressed interest in? If they're just developers that want to partner with the library, that's great, but then it means the conversation we have is much more loose and it's all theoretical and everything. But have an idea of like, okay, they want this piece of land and they've engaged or trying to engage, it helps us understand the context of the conversation.
Maybe that's part of the call and say, okay, you call the library, where are you looking at? Are you looking at Family Square?
Well, I know that's been the property, right, that everyone is going after, so.
Whatever else, and have those conversations to really narrow down to see what your options are, and I don't know that you.
But doesn't that also hook into the village and planning and zoning?
It could hook into planning and zoning and PUD or something of that nature. But it won't even go there until the developer says, this is my idea. And if the developer's coming to say, this is my idea, and we want to involve the library, then I don't think there's any harm in listening to what that might be. You're not committing to say, yeah.
Right, and there's 2 properties, the one with the bank that the guy won't sell. There's the gas station that still is being remediated, and the dry cleaners that'll probably have to be remediated as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, it could be, I mean, it's great, we can talk to him, but it could be 5, it could be 10 years.
Right.
That's
You know, realistically, do you want to wait 10 years? Do you want to wait 5 years?
They haven't even purchased the
Yeah.
property.
No.
There's a contract. But that doesn't mean,
Well, typically, the way it'll work with developers is they'll come in and they'll say, you know what, we're gonna have a contract, we'll sign that to have the right to buy it, but we need to get through zoning and planning, we need to get through, and that's what.
That could take a long
Zoning and
time.
planning isn't the end all be all. There's actually no approval process from something, it's just a recommendation to the board. So really, the board is what is going to have to approve it. And as I go through zoning and planning, that whole process, it can be rejected there and still go to board, and they can approve it, or vice versa. So there's really a lot of aspects, like you're saying, that you
Right,
have to work
one
through.
touches another.
It's similar to doing the due diligence on this. You know, you can hear how you can play with the factors and see, okay, you know what, let's see how that factors in. We don't know where you're at right now as a board. Do you want to? Are you looking at spending money on some project in the near future? Are you looking at it 5 years down the road, or 10 years down the road, or whatever else? And that's really your decision to make, and see how that plays out.
One of the things that we were talking about, and I think this is something, Tom, that you had mentioned, and you and I, or maybe I mentioned it and you agreed, I can't remember, but we need to set a timeline, because we have, I mean, there are things that we really need to do for the community, you know, and how long should we wait, I guess, to make a decision? I mean, do you have any insight into that? Should we say, if, you know, we should give the developer 6 months to either be on board and make an offer to us as to the property they're talking about, what they would be offering to us? I mean, or should, you know, I don't think we want to wait 5 years. So what's a reasonable amount of timeline?
I think you've got to take a step back.
Okay.
Before you even get to that stage, what is it that you're thinking, Mr. Developer, compared to what we're thinking? So understand what it is that I mean, it may be totally unacceptable to you, and therefore the time frame is not important. But we've got to understand what it is. Developers are, bottom line, they're in it for the profit. That's where they are. So they're not overly generous people.
What if we give them a free library?
You know, I mean, you've got to take your expectations with a certain amount of reality. But we've got to talk to them and find out, okay, if you're thinking that you're going to take everything here from the library and you're going to expect the library to take our piece of land and build its own building, okay, at least we know what you're thinking and what the extent of the deal is, and you know, come back and discuss it. And if it's not acceptable, then it's out the window. So you've got to understand what's in their mind. We might have something different in our mind, but we've got to understand what's being offered, or potentially being offered. There's going to be no firm agreement at this point.
Well, let me turn that around on you a little bit. Let's say we were not giving you the option of a downtown project. And we came to some agreement in terms of doing an addition here. When would we break ground and when would we finish?
Well,
Just estimates.
It depends on basically when you would look to make that decision, how much you'd spend. But I would say probably design, you're probably talking, I guess, probably 12 months, maybe 8 months. It varies on what you're looking at and what you want to do. You've got bidding another month maybe, and then construction. It depends what you do. But you're talking about a significant amount of time in the design. I mean, there's no question it will take time for them to come in. What we've done today is taken a very high level. They have to come down and talk to the staff, talk to you, come forward with some suggestions, ideas, and go through the whole process of understanding, similarly to what we've done, only in a lot more detail and a lot more meetings and understandings. They've got to get to that point before they really get along with the design. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think about 12 months design period.
So maybe 3 years, 3.5 years from start. Say if you went from design to bid to construction.
Well, in ballpark terms, say you took design for 12 months. Depends what you do, but say you took construction for 18 months, something like that. Depends entirely on what you do and how you do it, but that's 30 months. It could be in that vicinity, more or less, thereabouts. So you could be looking at, from maybe today, 3 years. If you wanted to speed it up, you probably could, but that involves you making some very quick decisions, and maybe you'd be uncomfortable making those as quickly as they would like it to be, which is why if you take 12 months, you're probably going to be closer.
So you're looking at like 3.5 to 4 years, and I mean, typically, even with a downtown developer, we don't know. I mean, we don't.
But this, besides the time for this whole process, though, this is the other thing we got to look at, though, is this isn't just a 3 or 5 year project. This is what we have before us is for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want us to get too impatient or too antsy and thinking, wow, you know. But then the flip side, it actually gives us time to talk to developers about downtown. So, I mean, we do have, if you will, a little leeway here in the front end to have these conversations with developers to see if it works. And, you know, admittedly, there's probably a lot of hurdles to clear. Like you said, they're in the profit-making business, so who knows? It may not be financially feasible or logistically possible, but I think we should definitely be having those conversations, especially here early in the game.
Yeah.
Tom, I kind of have to respectfully disagree. I don't think that, I think we're looking at a 3-year period once we make the decision to go and do something. And I don't think that we're looking at a 5 to 10-year plan at that point. I think we're looking at a 3-year project. Now, maintenance is still going to be an ongoing thing, but I don't think we're looking at a 10-year.
But my point is that whatever we do with this current footprint or downtown or whatever, that's to serve the library though for 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not talking about like a maintenance project or a capital projects schedule for that. I'm saying what we do should affect this library for the next 20 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I misunderstood.
I said respectfully, so don't worry about it.
Okay, I said respectfully, so he told me I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things with the downtown versus here, and this is probably more of like a mindset that I have, is I just don't want to get in the situation where we spend 8 to 12 months thinking about the downtown.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, nothing's really come of it, now we're gonna do this. Well, we actually turned a 3-year project into a 4-year project. And we are not victims, but previous boards have not made decisions. So so the compression of the window is more now. And so we don't have the luxury of 8 months to figure out if the village and the developers and everyone's gonna get together. I think there has to be timeline or just tangible movement on this. Because if there isn't, I mean, we have community needs that are not being met.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
We have maintenance needs that we'll be paying for essentially twice if we have to do it because it becomes urgent critical
Yeah.
in the next 3-year window when we don't have the longer term solutions enacted.
Yeah, no, and I think so we now we actually have not probably been fiscally responsible with that money because we thought of it. So I have no issue with, everyone knows why I say in the downtown. I want to make sure that I understand it, but there has to be movement on it. So that's why I asked about the developers and, well, Lane, if they're just developers that want to do a library, that's great, let's talk to them. But that's not tangible movement in my mind. I need to see, you're the developer that has this contract on this piece of property. What are you telling us here?
Exactly. I want to know what's in their mind.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
So I think they're asking for permission to.
Yeah, that's what we're asking.
Yeah.
Yes, but we want to invest our time in something that has potential. And
Yeah.
if they don't even have a property in mind, that doesn't really meet the
Exactly.
criteria.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we're hearing too is similar to the scope exercise we got from you, what you want us to ask them.
Yeah.
You want us to ask them,
Yeah.
what are you thinking, what's your timeline?
Sure.
Where are you looking?
Yeah.
Really put those questions up front now,
Yeah.
not mess around with it for a month or 2 months or 3 months. Just
Right.
Let's get out on it, let's ask those questions now.
Yeah, and what is your strategy for keeping it on a critical path with all of the things, permitting and permissions and P and Z and PUD and every other letter that needs to be checked off?
Yeah, and it's the critical path of construction, it's the critical path of getting to construction, the critical path of design, understanding how their process works. We'll leave that's a little bit later on the road, but that process is key to understand.
Are there any other properties in the downtown area that would even be considered appropriate for a library besides Family Square? I don't know, what's even, I can't remember what's there and what's not.
I'll do that for you, but yeah, Family Square, there's a property to the east of that that Mikhail owns, and except for the one house that's on the north side of it, he owns like a giant square. Mikhail came to planning zoning last week.
And presented the
The
townhouse.
townhomes, right?
And it was really just to get a sense of it, because the DPAC, the Downtown Planning Action Committee last year, kind of went through an exercise and said, okay, you know, these scale of buildings, this type of use, everything else that came out of it. And so you have that property, and you also have a little bit further to the east, the bank property. So I know the bank has a lot of parking that they don't utilize.
Bank of
and
America.
Bank of America, and you also have a lot south of that, which McHale owns again. He owns a lot of it. And there's some, you know, the apartments that are around there. So there's a lot of different parts and pieces. That I think might be possible, but until a developer comes to you, and I think part of what our exercise is, that we're not, didn't hit on scope, is coming to you with a new building, what that costs. That new building can be put on property A, B, C, D, right? And then we have to talk a lot about what are the land costs of that, what are the land costs here? And give you that option at least to see what is the new land review on any property.
And I know there's even been talk of the fire station down there, but I think that probably gets a little bit more complicated because I think about displacing another.
If you wish to
Well,
apply
that's a good point. I know the
for or
fire-
renew
I've
a
heard-
library
yeah,
card,
no,
please
and they-
do so now.
Yeah.
The fire department would love to be somewhere else,
Yeah.
but they can't be anywhere else, there's no money to move.
Yeah.
So kind of the whole thing of balance of,
Yeah.
where's the money?
Yep.
So,
And,
yeah,
and I'm sure you'll also talk to them about parking.
we'd love to do that, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, that's kind of one of the East Branch Public Library, that was their takeaway of it, was to keep their rights free for parking. And they had to build their own building, but they got the parking structure built around them. That was the benefit, they got to use the private development's parking.
How many people does the East Branch service? What is the population, or,
It's
I'm not even
East
sure.
Branch, Milwaukee.
It's in
So it
Milwaukee?
is Milwaukee. It's in a higher density area, but it's Milwaukee, so it's not, when I say high density, it's not like
Right.
Chicago, it's Milwaukee. I have to look.
Even Rockford's big. I mean, Rockford's
Yeah, Rockford's big. They have-
very big.
Yeah, and they have some different issues, demographics and
Yeah.
development issues. Everywhere's different, that's the key.
Right.
Everywhere is so different. And who's building vertically, a lot of these public-private developments are vertical builds. Obviously, density drives property value and everything else, and a lot of them have, you know, properties on them.
So Watford was in negotiation for years.
I believe
And
that.
two RFQs got issued, actually. One was issued by the library itself without village input. It went to the village with the one developer, and the village goes, well, we'd love for a local developer to actually do this, not outside. So to the library's credit at that point, said, okay, we hear you, we're not in a huge rush, because we're going to come in and pay for this, but we'll go back out with the RFQ. They burnt another 6 months. Talked to all the local developers, every single local developer said, nope, not interested. And they came back with the same developer that happened the first time, a year later. So-
Yeah, I mean, if you look like where Rockford is, and then you go along the Rock River, then you go to Byron, then you go to Oregon, then you go to Dixon, you know. So you've got all those small, well, Oregon and some of the other in Byron are smaller, but then you get to Dixon. So, you know, you've kind of got like that huge chunk.
Right. Service area.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you're okay with it, you know, we go out and with Diana and make some of those calls and just put some pressure on them to give us some answers. Those that we have.
I'd rather have the experts ask the questions and listen and take notes.
Yeah, I'd like
They know what they're doing.
I'd like for us to make a decision on whether we're gonna, you know, take a look at a moving downtown or doing something here in like a 3 to 6 month time frame.
That's a good point to make. I think that, and actually that plays with, I don't know if you guys caught it, the very first slide when Graham talked about the balance, the third piece, actually said, it says schedule.
Okay.
So that's what we really try to drive the next meeting, which I think is up for now, if one of you guys are available. If you want us to come back for that time period. We start working that in and having that 3 to 6 month period would be a big point to start off with.
Okay, and then the other thing that I was wondering about is, I see under miscellaneous funding sources, you have donations, grants, and land. I'm not sure if we tap into all the possible donation sources, or, you know, I watch how the Park District has, you know, this whole program, you know, and if you donate $1,000, you get your name on a leaf. Well, I'm telling you, these people must want their names on these leaves, because these leaves are filling up, you know, on the wall at the Park District. They're giving $1,000. So these are local people. We as a library need to get there before the Park District and get some of that, you know.
There's also, when you talk about donations, I don't know if you've had any, but recently it seems like a lot of people are putting the library in their will if they've got nobody to leave.
Legacy, yeah.
You know, and I know Villa Park has got some significant contributions from that, taking 100,000 plus. And I know that DeKalb have had some too, probably about $250,000. People just leaving money to the library because, you know, they've got nowhere else, they've got no relative, nowhere else to do. They've used the library all their lives. They want it to be part of the community, and you know, I mean, donations are part. You can also go through a huge donation drive. Typically, libraries haven't done awfully well at that. I'll get on to the next one. DeKalb targeted $3 million that they looked for in contributions. They probably ended up with about $1.5 million. But they had some very big donors out there that they looked at. But they spent a lot of money with a donation company going out there, managing the process for them. So it wasn't just a straightforward, hey, $1.5 million. There was a significant cost of getting that $1.5 million.
Is there, do you know anybody who could come and give us a presentation on how they do funding, how they do? I mean, I don't mean somebody who would charge us an arm and a leg. I mean somebody who would educate us on how we could set up our own, you know, I don't know, funding committee or, you know, grant committee or whatever.
Similar to what the Park District did with the new playground.
Right.
I mean, they didn't aim for like a huge chunk of money, but they did raise a chunk of money through Lisle residents, and that helped offset whatever costs.
It's not going to be the major funding for your project, but it might help.
But having a plan is important.
Yes.
Sure. No, I agree. No, I agree. Yeah. And then theirs is gone through their Partners for Park Foundation, which is pretty successful.
They get a lot of money.
Yeah, they get it mostly through Eyes of the Skies and then other little ones. Eyes of the Skies are a big order for them. So.
But these companies who can organize it for you and do things, they get to be expensive.
Yes, and
the school, and the costs of getting that to where they got was just a lot of money. St. Sophia Church, we're doing the same thing there, but again, the company that does it is expensive. The question is, what can you target compared to what it will cost?
Like
that's what you've got to look at.
That company that you're talking about, did they just get a percentage of the donations? They take a fee.
No, they charge us.
So if it's like a percentage, well, if it's a percentage basis, you could say, well, it might be worth it, but if you got to change it,
when you talk about landscaping, something I've seen other libraries do is they sell, I'm calling them cubes. What am I trying to think of? Bricks.
Seeds,
Bricks.
Bricks, yeah.
And people get them inscribed, and they will pay hundreds of dollars to have that in their library. So, yeah.
She's got a brick down in normal.
See, and if you have somebody who can talk to us about funding that, you know, all those different ideas. I know United Libraries has 3 webinars on them. And, you know, maybe somebody, I mean, I would do them, but they're for fee. I mean, and they're what works in libraries. So maybe we should consider that, I mean, as funding.
There's also naming rights. If you've got a big conference room or something like that, and they made a significant donation, you can put their name on that. Naming of other rooms, DeKalb had people that sponsored the media room for a large sum of money. You know, it depends on your community and who you feel will contribute. But that's part of it.
We could look at the funding. That's like, I mean, we'll have to look at that, but we could We don't want to take up too much time.
The other one is grants. There isn't a lot to be obtained in grants now, but there is something. And then the third one here is land cost, where you'd sell some land or you do a land swap or something like that. That's just another option, so we'll move on. We'll get to, this is an example, it happens to be Carl, but what they did is they got very creative in getting all their funding. And they didn't just use one source, it was very much a mixed source. At that time, the State Library Board was issuing a large sum of money. They applied for it, they qualified for it, and they ended up getting, I think, something in the region of about 15, 17 million, something like that off the top of my head. They also went to the city issued some bonds for them, so they got another 10 million there. Donations we just talked about. They had a TIF fund as well that helped contribute towards the funding. They used the library reserve that they had to contribute.
In 5 minutes, the library will close.
And then they looked at what they
Computers will be
had
shut
in terms
down.
of
Please
cash
make
from
sure to check
various
out all materials before leaving
contributions
the
funds that they
building.
received, and they put that into. But what they had is quite a mix of funding that contributed towards a large sum that they could do a library with. So it doesn't have to be one source, it could be a combination.
Really quick, the gas tax that passed a few months back, is there money available in that infrastructure bill for libraries, or is it already accounted for?
I don't know.
Yeah, we can.
We could cross the
There was
bridge.
some ComEd grants as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They're not huge,
That's-
but they help.
That's fine.
So,
I just didn't know if you
And the
knew.
reason why we wanted to show that graph is really not to say, this is applying to you, it's just that there are multiple sources. We need to provide you the options of these are your sources that you have, these are the funds that are available to you. And then the next board meeting idea of, if you guys approve us to go and talk to those financial people and bring them to you, is, okay, you have these options, how much do you want to spend? Of those options, what do you want to spend it on, which is a hard option for the voter, and really part of it is the cost of achieving your strategic plan. And it's kind of the high level of, hey, we want to check off all those boxes, and we want to do this all, whether it's here or if it's a downtown site. This is the cost, and we can play with it from there.
so next board meeting, we're hopeful that we can review the funding and the building project option costs, as we talked about, which basically is the cost we're trying to achieve. We put strategic plan, but we've kind of taken it a little further with various options now, and looking at how much you want to spend. So if we have the finance guy come in and give you some ideas, maybe send that ahead so that you could look at it and see, then you'll have a tolerance factor. There's no right answer. It's your library, it's what you want to spend, what you want to look at. So, in conclusion, our efforts ahead of the next board meeting: determine potential funding sources and values, determine potential building project option costs based on what we've looked at today. And then we talked about whether you'd like us to talk to the developer in the library, and just try and get some basic facts, so that it's, well, we think it might be a good idea. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
So, so that at least you've got something that is potentially there, or is it just a mist of cloud, so.
If I do the math on this page that has to do with decal, then the whole project was about 35 million.
Yeah.
They only had to pay $1 million of that from their own cash reserves.
That's from reserves, but they have to pay the bottom cost.
They gotta-
Oh, okay. Okay, but that's what they,
Amortized over the total
Yeah.
life.
okay, got it, okay.
It got slightly more complicated because the state didn't pay the money.
Oh, forget it then.
But that's a whole other
That's a
story.
whole nother story, okay.
Yeah.
It's not as pretty a picture as it looks.
No longer available within the terms of what
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Never mind.
So, any questions?
So you guys are going to talk to the developers between now and the next meeting? Okay, good. The financial advisor will be at this next meeting too, or not?
Yeah, we invite him with your
It's
permission.
more meeting.
So he'll be ahead.
The more information, the best.
You know, it's back to the champagne. and beer.
Per capita.
You know, you've got a wish list, everybody's got a wish list, but, you know, can you
Or
afford
that's
it?
what we're
Is the question.
spending.
Or do you want to? afford it?
And the air
It's probably,
is 103. And if we could just
Any
spend
other
that-
questions? Any other questions or comments from?
No, I think you guys are great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
I think that after the next meeting.
We can't guarantee that.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, no, that's fine. Actually, we did okay. Do we know the date for the next meeting, or?
No, we will figure that out,
Okay,
get to it.
okay. That's fine, that's perfect.
You need a motion?
So-
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Second.
So we got a motion and a second.
Chris.
All right, roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:00 o'clock.